Once we have chosen the proper selection set parameters and created all the selection sets we need, we now know exactly what entities should be included on this report. Now what we need to do is choose what properties of those entities we would like to have included in this particular report. So what we're going to do is go into the Sketch tab. The Sketch tab is where we lay out the entire report. Now before you come into the Sketch tab, it is highly recommended to have laid out on paper or Excel someplace exactly what you'd like this report to look like, how you would like items grouped, and we're going to go over the technique of grouping, and how many rows and columns we need to meet all of the parameters we'd like to show in the report. For example, what we've done here is we've got a snapshot of what we'd like this report to look like. I always recommend designing this on paper or on your computer or somewhere so you know exactly how many headers you need and how many rows and columns. Here you can see we're going to design a report to have a document header called MetaLab Purchased Round. And then we're going to have a selection set header called Conicals. And then we're going to need at least 2 columns. One column for the diameter header and another column for the quantity header. And you can see here that we're going to group our entities by diameter and then report the sum quantities of those groups. And we're going to get into details on grouping later in the tutorial. Right now what we need to do is make sure that we open up our sketch so that we've got the proper number of rows or columns in order to create this report. So what we're going to do is we're going to come over here and we're going to see that we need 2 columns. So we're going to open up to A and B. And if you've watched all the instructional videos on how to create custom tags, the reporting feature is identical. We're now going to take the column A and we're going to stretch it by grabbing on that little dotted yellow line, and we're going to stretch it all the way out here. Now we can't stretch out B until we open up C first. In other words, if we try to stretch out B and pull it out, Practicad's going to open up another column. So we always have to have one more column open than we need before we can resize the column B to what we want. So we're now going to resize column B, and then what we can do is we can come back and we can always close column C. Keep note that you will never be able to close a row or column if there's any information in one of those fields. Currently, all the fields are blank, so we can do this. So what we're going to do here is we're going to lay out the report under the sketch. We've got the page header and footer. Generally, what we use those for is for if we're going to print out this report on paper, we can have a page count and page number. We're going to go over that. We have a document header and footer. In this particular tutorial, we're going to call the document header the MetaLab Purchased Round Report. We then have a selection header and a selection footer. Here we're going to use the selection header to say Conicals, as you can see here on our sample. And then we're going to have the details. And dependent on the grouping will depend upon whether or not we're putting the properties we want reported under details or in some other row. We're going to go through all different exercises to explain that. But what we've got here is the layout of this report thus far to match. One thing we're going to do is we're also going to make sure that the size of our fields is going to match. Notice currently that for the document header, we've chosen to make these particular fields twice as big as all the others. And we did that because we're going to come into document, we're going to stretch down just a little bit. We just pull on the grade just a little bit. And now what we've got is we've got fields 1AB and 2AB open for document. And we can combine these fields by simply, just like we do with custom tags, stretching these fields open, and then we can also pull them down here. So in other words, what we're about to do for the document header is we're going to combine all of the fields to one large field. Now we're ready to fill in the data for the report.